So my name is Joël Glasman. I'm a historian. I teach African history and global history at the University of Bayreuth. I worked on the history of the African states, of the post-colonial African states, mostly West and Central Africa. And in the recent years, I have been working on the history of humanitarian aid. My last book has looked at the question, what can historical knowledge do for aid workers, for humanitarian organizations? As you know, human organizations nowadays are under attack, quite literally. In the past 3 months, aid workers have been killed in Gaza and in other places. But aid workers are also attacked politically by right-wing parties that are accused of helping migrants and helping refugees coming to Europe, and left-wing activists have been accusing aid workers of playing a role in European imperialism. So my work is on how to help aid workers defend themselves thanks to historical, anthropological knowledge. How can the history of the organizations, the history of their tools, the history of the concepts that they're using help them to defend what they want to do. That's what I call humanities. So my current research project here at the Research Centre is on the history of indifference. If you look at the historiography on humanitarian aid and humanitarianism, if you read people like Didier Fassin, Luc Boltanski, or Peter Redfield, this literature looks at how humanitarian organizations have shaped European audiences, European emotions toward empathy, in order to, Europeans spend money for humanitarian organizations to help people abroad. And this assumption in this literature that empathy in the 20th century had to be produced by the media, by the press, by TV ads showing pictures of hungry African children and stuff like that in order to channel European empathy towards Africa and non-European societies. And in my current research project, I turn this around, and my assumption is, what if indifference was also a historical project? Indifference, apathy, the disinterest of European audiences for the rest of the world. Where does it come from? I'll give you one example. It's if you ask European children, even very young children, if they know something about Africa, they will give you names of African animals. They will speak about crocodiles and lions and elephants, and giraffes and apes, and if you ask the same European kids about what they know about African societies, they won't know anything probably. So that's how do you build a constellation in which we assume that it's normal for children to know about African animals, but know nothing about the societies who live in the countries in which these animals also live. If you take another example, is goods, stuff that we have from the world. Most of our clothes, our oil and uranium and coltan that we have on our mobile phones, it comes from all over the world. So in everyday life, Europeans need stuff that is produced by non-European societies, and yet they have very little knowledge about the society. So where does it come from? Where does this gap come from? And my assumption is that it comes from colonialism, and from colonial propaganda, and from the destruction of empathy through colonial propaganda and colonial practices. The key message of colonial propaganda is don't care about those people. Do not care too much. The key message for officers is do not fraternize with non-European enemies. The key message for missionaries, administrators is don't go native. You may learn a little bit of the language, but not too much. So there was a huge paranoia about Europeans getting too empathetic and too close to non-European societies. And of course, the colonial administration would also put in jail or kill non-European intellectuals, journalists, writers, novelists who would address European audiences. The relation of my work to disconnectivity is that we tend to imagine colonization as a moment of knowledge production and of connectivity. When we think about the empires, we think of all those maps, large political entities stretching over several continents, those arrows of people moving around and goods moving around. So we tend to imagine empires as moments of connectivity. In my work, I want to look at disconnectivity and how colonialism destroyed connectivity through segregation, apartheid, separation, but also through the destruction of knowledge. The last thing that the French administration did when they left Africa, when they left Algeria in 1962, after 8 years of war of independence, they did not only kill 300,000 Algerians who were fighting for their freedom, they also destroyed archives. And the French terror organization, the OAS, they bombed the library and destroyed part of the archives. And they did it on purpose, so no one will know what this organization did in Algeria and what the French administration did in Algeria. And of course they destroyed knowledge about African societies, not only in Algeria but also in Cameroon, in Madagascar, in other countries. So did the British administration. Thanks to the Hanslope files and the work of several historians, we know that the British administration in Kenya destroyed a massive amount of files with knowledge in it about Kenyan society. And the British administration destroyed archives and archival material in India, in Tanzania, and in other places as well. So I look at all those examples of knowledge destruction in order to break with this idea of that the colonialization was about knowledge production and connectivity. And of course there is a synergy with some fellows who have been working here or are currently working here. Anna Day, for instance, a scholar who has been working on, for instance, coal mining and how the colonial archives, and the experience of colonial subject workings in the mines have been erased and silenced. Fellows like Callie Wilkinson, who is working on the British East India Company and how this company communicates and censored also knowledge. So there is a synergy here at this research center from which my work benefits a great deal.